Take you back to our top story now. Higher Education Minister Naledi Pandor delivering some good news for students this morning, those who owe universities money at least. She's allocated almost R1 billion to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to settle historical debt. This will be allocated for students who are still at university and did not benefit from the improved funding support that began in 2018. The question many people are now asking is, where will the money come from? To answer that question is the Deputy Minister in the Department of Higher Education, who's live with us in studio this Sunday afternoon. Let's begin with that, Deputy Minister. Afternoon, thank you for coming in. 967 million rand is what you're going to spend. Where did the money come from?
The money obviously is from the National Fiscus. I mean, the Minister and the Department had to engage with Treasury so that we can reallocate certain monies that, were not used, which were then consolidated into this, almost R1 billion that's going to be, paid to the NSFAS, which will then transfer the money to the different universities to cover the affected number of students.
And significant as this amount is, it is only the beginning, because this is phase one of, shall we say, for want of a better term, a two-step project for you.
Well, in fact, this is not the first time that we're doing this. If you remember in 2016, when there was the popular 0% increase of student fees, the department, government through our department, made an allocation to universities of about R2 billion, which was to clear the historical debt of the students' academic year between 2013 up to 2017. And so this is the first phase post the announcement by the former President Jacob Zuma of the fee-free higher education. And, so we're going to be looking at, those students will be accumulating debt over the next 3 or so years. We're anticipating that those students who are in the system currently will have to complete by 2022. So we are continuing with the investigation of the quantum and the cost of the historic debt to universities, and looking at ways and means within which we can help settle that.
This 967 million rand is going to cover just above 52,000 students. So when the entire thing has been done, including phase 2, do you have an estimate of just the heads that you would have covered?
Well, look, I think, so the 52,000 students are those students who are NSFAS beneficiaries. So it doesn't cover all the students, so only those students who are NSFAS beneficiaries, and only those students who have been in the system who were under the 122,000 threshold. I mean, if you remember in the past, so students were only allocated, students were only funded a certain portion of their tuition fee, and then they had to contribute, and therefore they accumulated debt to universities. So it's covering them that difference. So that's the second point. The third point is that those students who didn't get their qualifications because they were owing should now approach their universities. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme will also be approaching universities to get them a list of those students so that they are able to, graduate. Those who have signed a loan agreement will then be covered by this. So we'll continue to look at how many students are we talking about. Obviously, the number of students may increase or decrease depending on, a whole range of factors. So at this point, we're not able to project as to how many students will be covered by the conclusion of this process.
But as welcome an announcement as this is, it comes on the back of those protests at the likes of DUT and other universities, and that raises the question of why it is that students have to protest and leave lecture rooms before there appears to be any sort of movement from yourselves and the universities.
Now, I think we need to make this, very clear. So when former President Jacob Zuma made the announcement, he also indicated that the government will be investigating the extent of, the impact of the historical debt to students over and above what was paid. So we should not make the assumption that we're doing this for the first time. And I think what is also important was, Early in the year, the minister met with the student leadership. She met with the vice chancellors of universities and made the commitment that before the end of March, we will make an announcement on what needs to happen. And arrangements were made between the department, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, and the university vice chancellors, and also the students themselves, that those students who owe universities should be allowed to register so that none of them, should be excluded. What we've seen in some of the universities is that the issues, although there was an issue around the historical debt, it was not as significant a cause of some of the protests that we've seen. I mean, there were a whole range of other issues which led to student protests. And
accommodation and that sort of thing.
Accommodation and all of that. And I think to illustrate that this was not such, not the only issue that was leading to protest. If you look at 52,000 students, most of those, we've asked for the breakdown, but most of these students would have completed their tuition by 2018. So I think that, it's important that we make that emphasis. It's quite unfortunate that, it had to take up until mid-March, but we believe that we had made the proper arrangements so that students are not excluded, so that when this kicks in, it had to be done properly. We also couldn't make the announcement in haste because we had to find out whether, Treasury will have the money, and a whole range of other factors.
And central to the funding solutions and the crisis itself in South Africa has been the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS itself. We saw the minister taking action there, interventions last year. Towards the end of the year, a positive assessment by the department to say you were sort of happy with where things were going. When you look at NSFAS today, are you satisfied that it remains a vehicle through which you can adequately respond to the funding needs of students in South Africa and that the people in positions there are up to the task?
Look, if you were to ask me last year, which was 2018, at this time, we had crises popping up all over.
It was a mess.
It was a mess. And we, in our view, did not have sufficient capacity at the NSFAS to be able to handle those issues. Universities had not received their grants. Students were not receiving their allowances. There was still a lot of backlog that was stretching from 2015, 2016. There was just a lot of concern all over. Post, August, September, when the minister appointed the administrator, after receiving the resignation from the chair and the CEO, I must say that the situation could have obviously been much better, but we think that it has significantly changed, compared to that. A lot of students are now getting their allowances. A lot of students, have gone to register without any major hassles. We have seen fewer protests in universities as compared to the previous. And some of those protests that we've witnessed are things which would require a policy change and huge financial commitments on the part of the department. So we are quite happy with the changes that has been done, and we hope that whoever comes in as the new leadership of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme will be able to continue with the investment that the current administrator has made together with his team.
All right. Deputy Minister for Higher Education, Buti Manamela, as always, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Plenty more news for you in just a moment.